Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Array Methods 10 for part 4 of Module 1. And we're going to write a function called square elements. Given an array of numbers, square elements should return a new array where each element is the square of the element in the given array. That's a little awkwardly phrased, but that's okay. So essentially all we're going to do is we're going to create squared. It's going to be our result array. We're going to return squared at the end. We're then going to iterate over the input array. Once we figured out how to type. And then we're going to, let's do it all in one line. We'll say squared.push, and we're going to push into our squared array the current element, array at I, times 2, which is how we would square it. So, new array, iterate over the old one, square the elements as you're pushing them in, and then return the result squared. You don't square the result necessarily. The result is just called squared, but you get the idea. So filter odd elements. This one we're going to, how would you say this? We're going to do a very similar idea. We're going to say odd elements. I'm going to create an empty array, and then we're going to return odd elements. So in terms of how do you say this? It's like we're going to iterate over the array, input array. We're going to create a resulting array that's going to have some things pushed into it. For the first one, we pushed everything, but just squared it. For this one, we're going to selectively push things. So we need to check something about the value first, and then push it without really changing it. So in order to determine if an element is odd, we need to access the element, which we do at array at I. We apply the modulus operator. We say modulus 2 equals 0. If that's the case, then it is even, which is actually the opposite of this problem. So we'll do 1, which is the problem. And so if array at I modulo 2 is equal to 1, we know that element is odd. So we have our odd elements result array. We'll say odd elements.push array at I. And then finally at the end we return odd elements. And we're in good shape. Compute product of all elements. So this one is kind of like the sum, but instead of the sum, if given an empty array, if the array is empty, it should return 0. So that's our edge case. So we'll say if array.length is equal to 0, we're going to just return 0. Otherwise, we need a product. Now, if I have a sum and I want to start it at something, I'm going to say 0 because that's not going to change the overall sum. Whatever I add to 0 is just going to be whatever I added to it, and 0 doesn't really affect it. I think it's called the identity, like the additive identity, and so which is to say any number any number added to 0 is just that same number again, and the multiplicative identity is 1, meaning every number multiplied by 1 is that original number. Now, if that's not correct in terms of it's not called the identity or the multiplicative identity, that's okay. The idea we want to revolve around is that if we're creating a product, we're going to start that product at 1, multiplying everything by 1. And this was mentioned briefly during the Module 0 beta course. And what we can do is something called times equals. So we've been doing plus equals, which is to say sum plus equals, and to add things up to the sum so that it keeps a running total. For times equals, it's the same idea, but instead of plus as the operator, we're using multiplication. So variable I is equal to 0, I is less than the length of the array, I plus plus. We'll say product times equals whatever the current element is. This is the same as product is equal to product times array at I. Those are the same thing. So once we got that, we run it, we are correct. So excellent work, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.